Hi guys, we're looking at Monster Invasion. Now in Manchester in recent years around Halloween time you may have seen giant eyes, creatures creeping over rooftops or tentacles coming out of strange spaces. These are the work of Filthy Luca and Design in Air, and they're big fabric cartoon-like monsters which come creeping around the city, and you can go on a trail and try and spot them all. So one of my absolute favourite things at Monster Invasion are the tentacles. Now, if we're going to consider a tentacle, I insist that we look at some decent reference material. You must look at an octopus, possibly a squid, but definitely I would say an octopus. If you think about the structure of an octopus's leg and our basic human arms or limbs, these are rather spectacular. They kind of move fluidly, they bend in all different directions, they twist, they turn, even spiral around upon themselves. So we look at the structure and think what it's like. The understructure, the actual body of the octopus, it's sort of like an isosceles triangle, wider at the base, getting narrower to a point. If you then look closely at the reference material, there are pairs of suckers, but they're not side by side by side. They're slightly at an angle. So you see how I've arranged these at an angle. And they're getting smaller as they move to the tip of the tentacle. Now I've done this in PowerPoint, but I've converted into Photoshop to get a little bit of a bend in here. So you can see the structure and how we've taken the structure and we're developing it. Right, so we're going to draw a tentacle. So remember, it's an isosceles triangle with circles applied, not in pairs, slightly staggered, and possibly with a curve. How on earth do we draw that? Well, we're not going to go too big to begin with. I'm just drawing a slight curved line. I'm going to draw a flat base that's quite wide, and then I'm going to bring that to the point. That's one. I'm going to do another one, slightly bigger at the base, but it does not matter. If you think you want to go spirally, do not go too spirally, just a little bit. It will be very tricky. If you go too spirally, they're becoming more unusual, my shapes. But I've drawn myself 4. You could say you need 8, but it's a monster, it's not an octopus. So I'm going to apply the circular shapes for the suckers. Here we go. 1. Slightly staggered. You see how the second one I'm drawing a little bit lower. I'm drawing them in pairs. Then I know I've got the right number. I'm not leaving big gaps. Oop, I've just got them in there. See how that one is just on the edge? It doesn't matter if they're going over the edge. Look at the reference material. Some of these are quite bumpy as they're on the side. So the next thing we're going to do is cut out with scissors. Now, if you notice, I've left a bit of a border around because that's fine for the way I'm doing this. I'm going to show you how to cut with scissors, which you might think is a bit silly, but roll with us. So I'm cutting off, first of all the excess. I'm now going to use the heel of the scissor here, close to the object, and see I've done that in one long cut. I've got a long bladed scissor, because it suits my big hand. And see what I do? I move the piece of paper around. Now there, it's going to be fiddly to cut back that way. So I turn the whole piece of paper around, and I'm cutting along the line. I'm turning the piece of paper. Cut out the fiddly shape, and I'll do it again. So going along the line, that was one cut. Couple of cuts. And down we go the other side. Perfect. I have 4 tentacles. Right, we're going back to where we began. We're looking back at our artists and we're seeing that these monsters have come creeping into the city, which is an idea I love. So I've taken myself a base colour. I could paint a base colour, I could paint a sky, I could paint lots of things. I could draw a horizon of some buildings or a single building like the Manchester Grammar School. However, I have taken a photograph and in Photoshop I've edited it with a filter to give it this kind of comic looking style. I've cut it out using my special cutting technique, using the heel of the scissor to get nice long cuts. and I'm ready to collage. Now, I'm not going to stick anything down. I've got my 4 tentacles. I've also cut myself out a little moon. Now, I've created a little face on the moon, inferring that this guy's really tired. He's got his mouth open, he's yawning. Now, I've got my horizon. I'm going to bring it to the bottom. It doesn't quite work to the edge of the piece of paper, so I could turn the paper around. But then I've got a lot of height and not a lot of width. I think I need the width in my design. So I'm going to take this. I'm not sticking anything down at the moment. I quite like the idea of having some text at the bottom, so I'm going to leave a bit of space. I'm going to put a tentacle behind the building and look at it. I don't want to see the edge. I want them to be completely hidden behind the building. Do I want them crossing over? I don't think I do. So I have to move and position them to make them work. So I have positioned the tentacles. I'm now considering where I want the moon. Now nothing is stuck down, so whilst I'm doing this, I can continue to move it around and modify. When I come to stick, I'm going to use Pritt Stick, but I'm not going to stick really carefully. I'm going to do what I call a bad stick, because I want to be able to move and reposition. So if I've got one long line of glue along the base of my horizon, left myself a bit of space for that text if I want it later. Now, when I come to stick these guys down, I can decide exactly where I want them, because I can lift up and I can move them around. Later, when I'm completely finished, I can then add a little bit more glue here and stick and secure the whole design. Welcome back. Now I've started to draw in the tentacles, over drawing with just a standard felt tip pen. I'm doing something slightly different from just a solid line. I'm drawing with a kind of broken line. And this is what I mean by broken line, a line that starts, goes a bit dashed. It doesn't have to be a continuous line. I've actually gone off the outline that I've drawn there, but it does not matter. So when I draw my circles back in for the suckers, I can move them a little bit. These things are just part of the process where you adapt and change things as you go. Sometimes because it's not worked, sometimes because you've had a new idea. So I'm going to just add those back in. It looks quite a cool scene. Now obviously I could get some felt tips or Poscas or pencil crayons and add some colour. I'm actually going to go in with a bit of solid fill into one side of my tentacles, the side that is away from the moon, because I'm suggesting that there's light coming off the moon. Doesn't matter if it's a bit patchy. See, I'm just coming in around the edge of them. I'm going fairly quick. It's kind of an illustration style. It's not a photographic style I'm trying to develop. It's just adding a little bit of shadow. Now over here, this is a bit strange bit, because if the light's coming from here, it'd be light at this side and dark at the other side. It doesn't matter, because I can go over that bit that I didn't like before. And you can see the Monster Invasion coming together. Now I could obviously have a monster, I could have a pair of eyes peeping in as well. It's taking its toll. It's looking quite exciting now. I could add more shadow into the actual suckers. The thing is, if you start something like this, you've probably got to make a commitment to the full thing. So you've got 5 minutes before the bell. Probably don't start, but if you've got 20 minutes, you probably can whiz round and just add in the shadow. So I'm applying it on the same side I applied the shadow. Right guys, you'll see what I've done. I've got carried away. I've written a little bit of text because it is a story after all. This is an illustration. Without a sound, the darkness consumed the day, but we know there's more coming. The picture is telling us. Now I've added another tentacle that comes around the building. If you notice, when I glue things down in this style of work, I don't glue them there, I put loads of glue underneath them, because I've now decided I want to suggest the octopus body behind here, although the monster octopus, obviously not a real octopus. So I've cut out a little piece of paper that would do the job, monster octopus body, and I've managed to put it in. I've made myself 2 little eyes. Eyes are always good in this type of illustration. I'm going to hang off the top of his head in a slightly weird way, but it's an illustration, it doesn't have to be real. So you can see now what I need to do on this monster body. It needs the black pen line, doesn't it? So I'm going to connect and get it to go behind the building. Now I probably either need a little bit of mouth or a bit of texture. That's the edge of the building. I don't know if I want a mouth. I think maybe it's made me scarier without one. So I'm just giving a bit of texture. The light, of course, remember, is coming from the moon. So it has to be darker down the bottom. Gone for dots. And even if it's not quite resolved, you get the feeling this guy is creeping up, don't you? It's certainly added character. Do you think I need another 3 legs? Possibly. Anyway, enjoy making monsters. Have fun. See you soon.